All right. I'm on chapter 21 of Terry Brooks's Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold. 3 chapters to go. Chapter 21 is called Iron Mark. So we're finally getting to the end here. And we'll see if I will read The Black Unicorn or not. I'm considering it. There's a poll. I don't need to talk about that stuff. The Iron Mark, page 345. The first thing Ben did that morning was to release Strabo from the spell of the Eodust that bound the dragon to him. Wow. He gave Strabo his freedom on the condition that the dragon not hunt the Greensward or any other settled part of the valley or any of its citizens so long as Ben was king. The duration of your rule in Landover amounts to a splash of water in the ocean of my lifetime, Holiday, the dragon advised him coldly, eyes lidded against his thoughts. They stood together in the clearing where Strabo had waited the night. Ben shrugged. Then the conditions should be easy to accept. Conditions from a human are never easy to accept, especially when the human is as deceitful as you. Flattery will gain you nothing more than I have already offered. Do you agree or not? The crusted snout split wide, teeth gleaming. You risk the possibility that my word means nothing, that extracting it while the magic binds me renders it worthless. Ben sighed. Yes or no? Strabo hissed, the sound rising up from deep within. Yes. He spread his leathered wings and arced his long neck skyward. Anything to be free of you. Then he hesitated and bent close. Understand, this is not finished yet between you and me, Holiday. We will meet again another day and settle the debt owed me. Okay. He rose with a rush of beating wings until he was atop the trees, banked eastward, and disappeared into the rising sun. Ben watched him go and then turned away. Quester Thews could not understand. First he was astonished, then angry, and finally just mystified. Whatever could the High Lord have been thinking? Why would he release Strabo like that? The dragon was a powerful ally, a weapon that none would dare to challenge, a lever which could be used to exact the pledges the High Lord so desperately needed. Yeah, I totally agree with Quester. But that's precisely what's wrong with keeping him, Ben tried to explain it to the wizard. I'd end up using him like a club. Yeah, it's true. I'd have my pledges not because the people of Landover felt they should give them, but because they were terrified of the dragon. Yeah, okay. You've convinced me. That's no good. I don't want loyalty from fear. I want loyalty from respect. Besides, Strabo is a two-edged sword. Sooner or later, the effects of the Eodust are going to wear off anyway. And then what? He'd turn on me in a minute. No, Quester, better that I let him go now and take my chances. Aptly put, High Lord, the wizard snapped. You will indeed take your chances. What happens to you when you face the mark? Strabo could have protected you. You should at least have kept him until then. But Ben shook his head. No, Quester, he answered softly. All right. One distraction after another. This isn't the dragon's fight. It's mine. It always has been, I think. He left the matter there, refusing to discuss it further with any of them. He had thought it through carefully. He had made up his mind. He had learned a few things he had not known earlier and deduced a few more. He saw clearly what a king of Landover must be if he were to have any value at all. He had come full circle in many respects from the time he had first entered the valley. He wanted his friends to understand, but he did not think he could explain it to them. Understanding would have to come another way. Happily, there was no further opportunity to dwell on the subject right then. The river master appeared, alerted by his people that something strange was going on in the grove of the old pines. Strabo had flown in toward midnight and flown out again that dawn. He brought with him a handful of humans, including the man named Holiday who claimed Landover's throne, the wizard Quester Thews, and the river master's missing daughter. Ben greeted the river master with apologies for the intrusion and a brief explanation of what had befallen them all during the past several weeks. He told the river master that Willow had followed him at his invitation, that it was his oversight in not advising the sprite earlier, and that he wished the sylph to remain with him for a few days more. He asked that they meet again 3 dawns hence at the Heart. He said nothing of the challenge issued by the Mark. "What purpose will be served, High Lord, in meeting with you at the Heart?" the river master asked pointedly. His people were all about them, faint shapes in the mist of early dawn, eyes that glimmered in the haze of the trees. "I will ask again your pledge to the throne of Landover," Ben answered. "I think that this time you will want to give it." Skepticism and a hint of alarm reflected in the sprite's chiseled features, and the gills on his neck ceased their steady flutter. "I have given you my conditions for such a pledge," the river master said softly. There was a warning in his voice. Ben kept his gaze steady. "I know." The river master nodded. "Very well, I will be there." He embraced Willow briefly, gave his permission for her to stay on with Ben, and was gone. His people disappeared with him, melting back into the forest gloom. Ben and the members of his little company were left alone. Willow moved close, her hand closing about his. "He does not intend to give you his pledge, Ben," she whispered, lowering her voice so that the others could not hear. Ben smiled ruefully. "I know, but I'm hoping that he won't have any choice." It was time to be going. He dispatched Bunyan to the Rheinweir castle with a message for Kallenborg and the other lords of the greensward. He had done as they had asked and rid them of Strabo. Now it was their turn. They were to meet him at the Heart 3 dawns hence and give him their pledge of loyalty. Bunyan disappeared into the forest wordlessly, and Ben and the remaining members of the little company turned homeward toward Sterling Silver. It took them longer returning from Eldaru in the lake country this time than it had before. Longer returning? Because this time they traveled afoot. Ben didn't mind. It gave him time to think, and he had a great deal to think about. Willow walked with him as they traveled, staying close, saying little. Quester and Abernathy questioned him repeatedly about his plans for dealing with the Mark, but he put them off. The truth of the matter was he didn't have any plans yet, but he didn't want them to know that. It was better if they thought that he was simply being close-mouthed. He spent much of his time surveying the country they traveled through and imagining how it had been before the failing of the magic. His memory of the vision shown him by the fairies recalled itself often, a gleaming, wondrous painting where the mist, the gloom, and the wilting of the land's life were absent. How long ago had this valley been like that, he wondered. How long before it could be made that way again? The vision of the fairies had been more than a memory. It had been a promise. He pondered the sluggish swirl of the deep mists that screened the sunshine and shrouded the mountains, the thinning groves of bonny blues, dotted with wilt and spotting, the lakes and rivers turned gray and clouded, and the meadows and grasslands grown sparse and wintry. He pondered the valley's people and their lives in a world turned suddenly harsh and unproductive. He thought again of the faces of those few that had appeared for his coronation, of the many who had lined the roads leading into Rheinweir. That could all be changed if the failing of the magic could be halted. A king to serve the land and lead her people would accomplish that end, Quester Thews believed. 20 years of no king upon Landover's throne had caused the problem in the first place. But the concept was a difficult one for Ben to grasp. Why would such a simple thing as the loss or gain of a king have so great an effect upon the life of this valley? A king was just a man. A king was just a figurehead. How could one man make such a difference? It could, he decided finally, where the land took its life from the magic that had created it, and the magic was sustained by the rule of a king. Such a thing might not be possible in a world governed solely by natural laws, but it could be so here. The land took its life from the magic. Questor had told him so. Perhaps the land took its life from the king as well. The implications of that possibility were staggering, and Ben could not begin to comprehend all of the ramifications that they suggested. Instead, he reduced their number to those relevant to his most immediate problem, staying alive. The magic failed without him, and the land failed without the magic failed without him. The land failed without the magic. There was a bond among the three. If he could understand it, he could save himself. He knew it instinctively. The fairies had not created Landover one day to see it fall apart the next simply because of the loss of a king. They had to have foreseen and provided a way to bring that king back again, a new king, a different king, but a king to rule and keep the magic strong. But what provision had they made? The first day for the journey back seemed endless. When night finally descended and the others of the little company slept, Ben lay awake, still thinking. He was awake a long time. The second day passed more quickly, and by midday they had reached once more the island castle of sterling silver. Bunyan was waiting at the gates, already returned from his journey to the greensward. He spoke rapidly, punctuating his sentences with sharp gestures. Ben couldn't begin to follow him. Questor interceded. Your message was delivered, High Lord. His voice was bitter. The lords of the greensward reply that they will come to the heart as commanded, but they will postpone until then any decision as to whether or not they will pledge to the throne. Ben grunted. Hardly surprising. He ignored the look exchanged by the wizard and Abernathy and moved ahead through the entry. Thanks for the effort, Bunyan. He walked quickly down the connecting passageway to the inner court and crossed, the others trailing. He had just stepped inside the front hall when a pair of bedraggled apparitions darted frantically from the shadows of an alcove and threw themselves at his feet. Great High Lord, mighty High Lord. Ben groaned in recognition. The Gahom gnomes, Philip and Sot, fell to their knees before him, groveling and whimpering so pitifully that it was embarrassing. Their fur was matted and spiked, their paws were caked with mud, and they had the look of something dredged from the sewers. Oh, High Lord, we thought you devoured by the dragon, Philip wailed. We thought you lost in the depths of the netherworld, Sot cried. Ah, you have great magic, High Lord, Philip praised him. Yes, you have returned from the dead, Sot declared. Ben wanted to kick them into next week. Will you kindly let go of me, he ordered. They had fastened themselves to his pant legs and were kissing his feet. He tried to shake free, but the gnomes would not release their death grip. Let go already, he snapped. They fell back, still hugging the stone flooring, their lidded eyes peering up at him expectantly. Great High Lord, Philip whispered. Mighty High, Sot began. Ben cut him short. Parsnip, Bunyan, get these two mud bunnies into a bath and don't let them up for air until you can tell what they are again. The kobolds dragged the Gahom gnomes from the foyer, still groveling. Ben sighed, suddenly weary. Questor, I want you and Abernathy to take one last look through the castle histories. See if there is anything at all that refers to the way that Landover, her kings, and the magic are joined. He shook his head sadly. I know we've been this route before. I know we haven't found anything, but, well, maybe we missed something. He trailed off. Questor nodded bravely. Yes, High Lord, it is possible that we missed something. It doesn't hurt to look again. He disappeared down the hallway with Abernathy in tow. Abernathy looked doubtful. Ben stood alone in the foyer with Willow for a few moments after the others had gone, then took the sylph gently by the hand and climbed the tower stairs to the land's view. He felt the need to explore the valley one last time. He bit his tongue at the thought, and he wanted the girl to go with him. They hadn't spoken much since her recovery from the transformation, but they had stayed close to each other. It helped him having her there. It gave him an assurance that he didn't entirely that he didn't entirely understand. It gave him strength. He tried to tell her. I want you to know something, Willow, he said as they stood together on the platform of the Landsview. I don't know how all this is going to turn out, but I do know that, whichever way it goes, I'm the better by a long sight for having had you for a friend. She did not reply. Her hand closed tightly over his. Together they grasped the railing, and the castle walls fell away into the clouded gray skies. They were gone all afternoon. Ben slept soundly that night and did not wake until midday. Questor met him on his way downstairs. The wizard looked exhausted. Huh. Okay. I'm a little confused by that. Don't tell me, Ben smiled sympathetically. Let me guess. Guessing is not required, High Lord, Questor replied. We worked all night, Abernathy and I, and we found nothing. I am sorry. Ben put his arm around the stick-like frame. Nothing to be sorry for. You tried. Go get some sleep. I'll see you for dinner. He ate some fruit and cheese and drank some wine in the kitchen while Parsnip watched silently, then went alone to the chapel of the Paladin. He stayed there for some time, kneeling in the shadows, wondering what had become of the champion and why he would not return, trying to draw some small measure of understanding and strength from the armored shell that rested on the pedestal before him. Dreams and wishes paraded before his eyes, vague images in the musted air, and he let himself feel the sweetness of the life he had enjoyed, old world and new. The good things recalled themselves and gave him peace. He walked back through Sterling Silver in the late afternoon hours. He took his time, trailing silently through her halls and passageways, brushing her stone with his hands, feeling the warmth of her body. The magic that gave her life still burned somewhere deep within, but it was weakening. The tarnish had grown worse. The discoloration had moved deeper within the castle walls. She was failing rapidly. He remembered the promise he had made to himself that one day he would find a way to help her. He wondered now if he ever would. He gathered his friends in the dining hall for dinner that evening, Willow, Questor, Abernathy, Bunyan, Parsnip, Philip, and Sot. There was little to eat. The castle larder was nearly empty, and the magic could no longer produce the needed food. Everyone pretended the meal was fine. Conversation was subdued. No one complained, no one argued. They all worked very hard at avoiding any mention of what lay ahead. When the meal was almost ended, Ben stood up. He had difficulty speaking. I hope that you will excuse me, but I should try to get at least a few hours sleep before He stopped. I thought I'd leave around midnight. I don't expect any of you to go with me. In fact, it might be better if you didn't. I appreciate the way you've all stood by me up to this point. I couldn't ask for better friends. I wish there was something High Lord, Questor interrupted gently. He came to his feet, thin arms folding into his gray robes. Please don't say anything more. We all decided earlier that we would come with you tomorrow. Good friends could do no less. Now why don't you go on to bed? They stared silently at him, the wizard, the scribe, the sylph, the kobolds, and the gnomes. He nodded slowly and smiled. Thank you. Thank you all again. He walked from the room and stood alone for a moment in the hall beyond. Then he climbed the stairs to the bedroom. Willow came to wake him at midnight. They stood together in the darkness of the bedroom after Ben had risen and held each other. Ben's eyes closed wearily, and he let the warmth of the girl seep through him. I am afraid of what's going to happen, Willow, he whispered to her. Not of what might happen to me. He cut himself short. No, that's a lie. I'm scared to death of what might happen to me. But I'm more afraid of what might happen to Landover if the mark kills me. If I fail to survive this confrontation, Landover may be lost, and I'm afraid I will fail, because I still don't know how to prevent him from winning. She hugged him tightly, and her voice was fierce. Ben, you have to believe in yourself. You have accomplished so much more than anyone ever imagined that you would. The answers you need are there. You have found them before when you needed them. I think you can do so again. He shook his head. I don't have enough time left to find them, Willow. The mark hasn't left me enough time. You will find the answers in the time that you have. Willow, listen to me. Ben moved his face away from hers. Only one thing can prevent the mark from killing me. Only one. The paladin. If the paladin appears to defend me, I have a chance. It's possible that he might. He's saved me several times now since I came into the valley. He bent close again. But Willow, he's a ghost. He lacks substance and strength. He's a shadow, and shadows don't frighten anyone for very long. I don't need a ghost. I need the real thing. And damn it, I don't even know if the real thing still exists. Her green eyes were calm in the aftermath of his fury. If he has come to you before, Ben, he will do so again. She paused. Do you remember when I told you that you were the one promised me by the fates woven in the marriage bed of my parents? You did not believe me, but you have seen since that it was so. I told you something more, Ben. I told you I sensed you were different. I told you I believed you were meant to be king of Landover. I still believe that. And I believe that the paladin will come to you again. I believe that he will protect you. He looked at her for a very long time without speaking. Then he kissed her lightly on the mouth. Guess there's only one way to find out. He gave her a brave smile and took her hands in his. Together they started for the door. Dawn stalked the heart on Cat's feet. First faint tinges of silver were beginning to lighten the eastern skies above the tree line. Ben and the members of his little company had arrived several hours earlier and were gathered now on the dais. Others had been arriving all night. The rivermaster was there, standing close against the screen of the forest, surrounded by dozens of his people, all faint shadows in the mist and night. The lords of the greensward were there as well, dressed in battle harness, bristling with arms. War horses stamped, and knights stood close like iron statues. Fairy people and humans. They faced one another across the rows of white velvet kneeling pads and armrests, eyes watchful in the gloom and half-light. Ben sat quietly on the throne at the center of the dais, Willow at one hand, Quester and Abernathy at the other. Kobolds crouched directly in front of him. Philip and Sot were nowhere to be seen. The home gnomes had vanished once more. Tunneled down about 20 feet, Ben surmised with faint amusement. Abernathy. Ben turned abruptly to find his scribe. The dog jumped at the sound of his voice, then collected himself and bowed stiffly. Yes, High Lord. Go to Kallenbor and the lords of the greensward, then to the rivermaster. Ask that they join me before the dais. Yes, High Lord. He went immediately. Abernathy hadn't quarreled once with Quester since they had left the castle. Both were on their best behavior, both walking on eggshells. It made Ben more nervous than he would have been if they had simply acted normal. High Lord, Quester bent close, his voice a whisper. It nears dawn. You wear no armor and you have no weapons. Let me suggest that you allow me to equip you with some of each, now. Ben looked up at the scarecrow figure with his gray robes and colored scarfs, his whispish, I don't know how to pronounce that word, wispish, W-I-S-P-I-S-H, wispish hair and beard. Never saw that word before. And I've read this and I don't remember saying it. His wispish hair and beard, and his lined, anxious face, and he smiled gently. No, Quester, no weapons and no armor. They wouldn't do me any good against a creature like the Mark. I can't defeat him that way. I have to find another. Quester Thews cleared his throat. Do you happen to have such a way in mind, High Lord? Ben felt the cold that had settled deep within him burn sharply. I might, he lied. Quester stepped back. The shadows that cloaked the clearing were beginning to fade with the coming of daylight. Figures appeared from out of the gloom to either side, the lords of the greensward and the rivermaster and members of his family. Ben stood up and walked to the edge of the dais, stepping past the watchful kobolds. The iron forms of the lords and the slim shadows of the fairies converged before him. He took a deep breath. There was no point in mincing words. The Mark comes to challenge me at dawn, he told them quietly. Will you stand with me against him? There was complete silence. Ben looked from one face to the next, then nodded. Very well. Let me put it another way. Kallenbor, No, let me put it another way. Kallenborg, the lords of the Greensward, gave me their word that they would pledge to the throne if I rid them of the dragon Strabo. I have done so. He is banished from the Greensward and all of the settled parts of the valley. I ask you now for your pledge. If your word means anything, you will give it to me. He waited. Kallenborg looked uncertain. What guarantee have we that you have done as you say, that the dragon is gone for good? Demanded Strahan harshly. He isn't gone for good, Ben was tempted to say. He's gone for as long as I'm king and not a moment more. So you ought to think seriously about helping me stay alive. But he didn't say that. Instead, he ignored Strahan and kept his eyes on Kallenborg. Once your pledge is given, I will command that the people of Greensward cease all violation of the waters that feed into and sustain the lake country. Your people will work with the people of the Rivermaster to clean those waters and to keep them clean. He turned. You, Rivermaster, will then fulfill your promise and give to me your pledge as well. And you will begin again to teach to the people of the Greensward the secrets of your healing magic. You will help them to understand. He paused again, eyes fixed now on the chiseled face of the sprite. There was uncertainty in the Rivermaster's face as well. Yeah, no one said anything. The wind brushed suddenly against his face, sharp and quick. From somewhere distant, there was a low rumble like thunder. Ben forced himself to remain outwardly calm. The dawn had begun to break against the skyline. No one, he said softly, will be forced to stand with me against the mark. He felt Quester's hand clamp roughly on his arm, but he ignored it. The clearing had gone still, but for the quickening of the wind and the growing sound of thunder. Shadows faded into streaks of silver and rose. The people of the lake country slipped deeper into the forest gloom. The knights and their war horses began to grow restless. High Lord Kallenborg came forward a step. His dark eyes were intense. It matters nothing what promises passed between us. If the mark has challenged you, you are a dead man. You would be so even if we chose to take your part in this. None of us, lords of fairy people, can withstand the mark. His is the strength that only the greatest magic can overcome. We lack such magic, all of us. Humans have never had it, and the people of the lake country have long since lost it. Only the paladin had such magic, and the paladin is gone. The Rivermaster came forward as well. Those with him were glancing about apprehensively. The wind had risen to a low whistle, and the thunder was beginning to reverberate through the forest earth. The clearing behind them was suddenly deserted. The rows of pads and rests like grave markers neatly placed. The rows of pads and rests like grave markers neatly placed. Okay. Strange wording there. Fairy magic banished the demons centuries ago, High Lord. Fairy magic had kept them from this land. The talisman of that fairy magic is the paladin, and none here can withstand the iron mark without the paladin to aid us. I am sorry, High Lord, but this battle must be yours. He turned and walked from the dais, his family hastening to follow. Strength to you, Play King, Kallenborg muttered, and then he wheeled away as well. The other lords trailed wordless after, armor clanking. Ben stood alone at the forefront of the dais and stared after them for a moment. Then he shook his head hopelessly. He guessed he hadn't really expected them to help anyway. Thunder shook the dais to its foundation, rolling through the earth beneath in a long, sustained rumble of dissatisfaction. The dawn's faint silver light disappeared in a sudden press of shadows. High Lord, get back. Quester was at his side, his gray robes whipping wildly in the wind. Willow appeared as well, and Abernathy and the kobolds. They surrounded him protectively, hands taking hold firmly. Bunyan and Parsnip hissed ferociously. The darkness thickened. Stand away, all of you, Ben shouted. Stand down off the dais, now. No, High Lord, Quester cried in response, his head shaking emphatically. There was resistance from all, and he shrugged free of them. The wind began to howl furiously. I said stand away, damn it. Get back away from me and do it now. Abernathy went. The kobolds bared their long teeth against the wind and darkness, and they hesitated still. Ben grasped Willow and shoved her into their hands, pushing all three aside. They went, a stricken Willow looking back frantically. Quester Thu stood his ground. I can help, High Lord. I have control over the magic now, and I... Ben grasped his shoulders and swung him about, fighting the thrust of the wind as it broke free from the netherworld and stung with its force. No, Quester, no one stands with me this time. Get off the dais at once. He propelled the wizard a good half-dozen feet with a single shove and motioned him to continue on. Quester looked back briefly, saw the determination in Ben's eyes, and went. Ben stood alone. The lords of the greensward and their knights and the rivermaster and his fairies huddled in the shadows of the forest, shielding their faces against the darkness and wind. Quester and the others crouched down against the side of the dais. Flags snapped and rippled as the wind tore at them. Silver stanchions shuddered and bent. Thunder rolled in one continuous frightening shudder. Ben was shaking. Great special effects, he thought absurdly. Shadows and mist swirled and joined at the far edge of the clearing, separating humans and fairies crouched within the trees. The thunder boomed sharply as if exploding. Then the demons appeared, a horde of dark, misshapen forms, breaking from invisibility into being, spilling over from the black. Serpentine mounts snarled and pawed at the earth, and weapons and armor clanked and rattled like bones. The mass expanded and spread like a stain against the frail dawn light, pushing forward toward the dais, clogging the rows of kneeling pads and rests. The thunder and the wind died away, and the sound of breathing and snarling filled the sudden stillness. The demons occupied almost the whole of the heart. Ben Holiday and his small band of friends were an island in a sea of black forms. A corridor opened at the army's center, and a massive black winged creature surged through the gap, half snake, half wolf, bearing on his back an armored nightmare. Ben took a deep breath and straightened resolutely. The iron mark had come for him. That was a bizarre chapter. It's been a while since I've read any of this, so I'd forgotten what had happened, but then I remembered, he came back with Strabo and the whole thing with Willow and her coming back. I'm like, why in the world would you stay? You're going to die, so why not just go back home? Because you're going to die. He's hoping that the paladin will show up, but it's just a ghost. I'm guessing at one point he would just say, okay, once the paladin can't do anything, you're just going to take that thing off and just disappear. That's the end of it, because you're not going to die. But I don't know. I'm really torn as I read this. Why he's being determined, why he's refusing magic, why he's refusing, and why he thought any of them would pledge anything to him right now since he's going to die. I don't know. It's an interesting chapter, and not sure what to make of it, but we'll see. The next one's called Medallion, and we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, I already know because I finished reading this book a couple of weeks ago, but man, this is a strange story at this point. So we'll see. See you later.